Hello folks, welcome to this course, Primavera Risk Analysis, Step by Step. My name is Gavin Drysdale. My background is in project controls covering the last 25 years. I'm based in Australia and my experience covers mega projects in the mining, oil and gas and heavy industries. Over the years, I have worked as a project controls specialist for many of the major international companies. I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in industrial engineering. The course content applies to all versions of Primavera Risk Analysis up to version 8.7. I am currently using version 8.7. If you're a project manager, project scheduler, project controller, engineer, cost controller, or anyone else who wishes to learn how to apply Primavera Risk Analysis, then this course is for you. You could also be refreshing and enhancing your skills and want to get up running quickly. By the end of the course, you will be able to model risks and duration uncertainty around a deterministic schedule. We will be covering the typical steps required for performing a schedule risk analysis using Primavera Risk Analysis or PRA. You will be able to provide the probability of achieving the deterministic schedule, the most likely completion date, a range of probabilistic outcomes such as P10, P50, P90 for an overall project, specific activity, package or project scope. Lastly, this course assumes that all participants have a basic understanding of the principles of scheduling and risk. It is assumed that imported files will be from Primavera P6, but files can also be imported from Microsoft Project or Deltek. In the next lesson, we will learn how to successfully import an XER project from Primavera P6. For this lesson, we will go through the steps of importing a P6 XER file into Primavera Risk. When you first open your copy of Primavera Risk, you will note that the whole workspace is blank, and most of the icons on the top command bars are grayed out. So, before we can discuss the workspace in detail, we will need to import our Primavera P6 XER file. There are two ways of doing this. We can select File Open from the top drop-down menu and then navigate to our XER file. When we do this, you will note that all types of files are displayed, so click Cancel. I prefer the second option. I would click File, Primavera, Open Primavera XER file from the top drop-down menu, then navigate to my XER file. It makes it much simpler because only XER files are displayed. Let's select one of the sample Primavera Risk files. Highlight Register EPC.xer and click Open. I have copied this file to a new folder on the desktop to make my navigation a bit easier. Now, when you select your XER file and click Open, you may receive a message that says, the selected file is from a different database to the last file. Some default mappings may be changed as a result. Ignore this and just click OK. A window will open for Primavera XER import options. The first option, Project Selection, will normally be grayed out because you are selecting a single project. However, if your XER file had sub-projects attached to it, then you could import one or all of them. The next option is to select the planning unit. This is where you need to be careful and make sure that your selected planning unit for PRA matches the units from the P6 database. For instance, select the radio button for day. You will then be able to select the number of hours in the day. If your P6 database mostly used 10 hours, then you would select 10 hours for the XER import options. I would generally select hours because then you don't need to worry about the P6 database planning units. So make sure that hours is selected. Next, make sure that the option to organize by WBS structure is checked. This will import your activities under their P6 WBS structure. Lastly, Workspace. If you've defined your own workspace, then you may want to select it, but it's not really necessary. Leave it as a default Primavera workspace and click OK. The next window that opens will display the XER import mappings. 2 tabs are displayed. Make sure that the Tasks tab is selected. You will be able to create a distribution if you already have 3-point estimates already defined in P6. This option is not used very much, so just make sure that it is unchecked. Again, the next 2 options, alternative duration distribution and duration correlation, are not used very often, so just ignore them. You'll find that these 2 options are handled within the templates in Primavera Risk. Next is the prefix and task ID with a project name. If you were importing several sub-projects under the same ID, then you would check this box so that they have prefixes of their project names. Since we are only importing one project, just ignore it and leave it unchecked. Lastly, on the bottom left, you could check the box to save the default XER settings for import. Check it to keep your settings. Now let's click the probabilistic tab. The options below are for risk events. Since we are not tracking risk events in P6, we can just ignore them, because we won't be using them in these lessons. This option is very rarely used. So, now you've set your defaults, and we can simply click OK to import our XER file. The file will open in Primavera Risk, but a new window will open that gives us the option to save the project as a Primavera Risk file. It's called .plan file. Navigate to the directory you want to save this file into, then click Save. And there you have it. Your P6 XER file will be displayed in Primavera Risk. In the next lesson, we'll discuss how to navigate the Primavera Risk workspace. In the last lesson, we learned how to import a Primavera P6 XER file into Primavera Risk. For this lesson, I would like to give an overview of the Primavera Risk Analysis workspace. When you first open a project into Primavera Risk, you will see all of our menus at the very top of the window. All of the menus have drop-down menus so that you can select an action. For example, Risk, Run Risk Analysis. Additionally, there are 2 customizable toolbars just below the menus. You will note that the icons in the toolbars generally match one of the options from the drop-down menus. For example, you could just select the icon to run the risk analysis. So you can select icons on the toolbars or use drop-down menus to select an action. Now let's look at this workspace. In Primavera Risk, there are 4 workspace areas, 3 panes on the top and 1 area across the bottom. The first pane on the left is the table area. This area is similar to a spreadsheet, and you're able to customize and sort all of the columns and rows. You can widen the columns and rows to suit your preferences. The second pane in the middle is the bar chart or Gantt chart area. You can vary the width by clicking and dragging the edge bars with your mouse. The top horizontal axis contains a customizable timescale associated with your schedule. If you click and drag the upper horizontal scale, you can move the schedule left and right. If you click and drag the lower horizontal scale, you can vary the time density of the timescale. Now, if you select any task in the left-hand pane, you'll see that it is automatically brought into view in the Gantt chart window. The third pane also contains a second table area. This area is also similar to a spreadsheet, and you're able to customize and sort all of the columns and rows. You can widen columns and rows to suit your preferences. You would usually find your outputs in this area. Lastly, the fourth area across the bottom is the details area. This area is also customizable and displays all of the details associated with a selected activity or project. It has an upper and lower set of tabs. The upper set provides various ways of viewing and interrogating the Gantt chart data. For now, let's leave it with Gantt chart selected. The lower tabs provide information about tasks that have been selected in the Gantt chart. Now, when you look at the menus and toolbars at the top of the main window, you will see a large array of options and icons. At first, they can be quite confusing, but we must remember that Primavera Risk was originally developed as scheduling software. Nowadays, it has two main features, scheduling and risk, that are merged into one package. So, all of our scheduling is going to be handled in Primavera P6 or Microsoft Project or Deltek. We may use some of the formatting features such as layout or filters, but we're going to focus on the risk side of the software. The main menus that we'll use will be Risk, Reports, Tools, and Window. Let's have a look at our layout. The left-hand pane generally looks like what we would expect in our Primavera P6 schedule. However, we could declutter the right-hand pane a little. So, select Format Columns from the top menu to open the Columns window. A quick way of doing this is to right-click on any of the column headers and select Format Columns. The Columns window has two panes at the top. In the left pane, you can view your options by groups, or you can list them alphabetically. So there are a lot of display options. In the right-hand pane, we have two tabs for the left and right columns. Click the left column tab and it will show columns that are currently displayed in the main left-hand area. Click the right-hand tab and you'll see all of the right-hand columns that are displayed. At this point, we only want to see our labor costs. So click on non-labor remaining, then click the bottom arrow between the panes to move the selection back to the left pane. Then do the same for materials remaining, expenses remaining, and cost remaining. Now the area below the panes contains information about each selected column. Select labor remaining in the right pane above, then look at the selected column data below. You will see that you can edit the top and bottom headings. You can also change the text alignment, column width, and so on. In addition, you can also edit or change the formula for the column data. The summary or monitors display adds the word calc to the column heading when you have a column that contains a formula. At the very bottom, you can view a text summary of your column settings or change the column heading font. Click OK at the bottom right of the window and you will see that we have cleaned up our Gantt chart window. One last area that we should look at are the general preferences for our model. This is done by clicking Plan Options from the top menu. The Plan Options window will open and you can make changes to your model preferences by selecting the appropriate tab. For example, your date columns may be displaying the time in addition to the date. We don't need this, so just select the radio button for No Time. Then at the bottom left, select the box to Use as default for all new plans and click OK to close the window. You'll see that the time is no longer displayed in your activities. Go ahead and save the model. It will be saved as register epc.plan. In this lesson, we learned how to navigate the Primavera Risk window, make changes to the layout, make changes to the format. In the next lesson, we will check our schedule health. Now that we have learned how to navigate the Primavera Risk Workspace, we need to learn how to check the health of our imported schedule before we conduct any analysis. This is an important step because without a good schedule, we could get inaccurate or misleading results. If you previously closed the file, reopen it by selecting File Open or File Open Recent from the top menu. Our file will open with the most recently saved preferences. There are three steps that I'd like to use for checking schedule health. The The first step is to inspect the import log. The second step will be to carry out an import check, and the third step is to perform a schedule check. So we click File, Review, Import Log, and a text file will open. You could also select Reports Import Log from the top menu. The text file is really a data dump of the imported P6 file that gives you warnings if any data has been changed during the import. If you see the word warning in capital letters followed by a colon, you will know that a data change has been made. Then the log will tell you what has been changed. For example, if you had imported your XER file in days and the XER file contained data of 3.5 days, Primavera Risk would round the days up to a whole number of 4 days and give you a warning, in caps, to tell you what it has done. Another example would be if you've marked an activity as actually having started at a future date. This is not allowed. So if Primavera Risk flags any warnings, you should go back to your original P6 file and correct your schedule before re-importing it again. At the end of the text file, you'll also see a list of warnings in lowercase. This lets you know if any data was not imported. In the case of register EPC.XER, the cost data was not imported. Rather, it was calculated in Primavera Risk. Once you're satisfied that your schedule is correct, then you can go to the second step of checking your schedule health. To do this, we select the Import Check tab on the right of the top row of tabs in the bottom window. What you will see is your Gantt chart overlaid with silver bars. The silver bars represent the original P6 import. On the right, you will see two columns, Start Check and Finish Check. This is where you will note any differences between your Primavera Risk schedule and the imported P6 schedule. For instance, if we look at our register-EPC schedule and make a couple of artificial changes, the differences will show up in the right-hand columns. As an example, let's change the duration of characterization to 11 days, board approvals to 8 days, and external approvals to 53 days. Immediately, you will see the differences in the right-hand columns. If this sort of thing were to happen after an import, it would tell us that there could be a problem with the P6 source schedule. For example, activities marked as started in the future. Although you could probably make minor adjustments to the durations in Primavera Risk to bring schedules back into line, it is best to fix the source P6 schedule first. This can easily be done. Starting from the top of the Gantt chart, we look for visual differences. You can see that the finish check for characterization is 1 day longer than the start check, so this immediately tells us where the first problem occurred. Enter 10 for its remaining duration, and you'll see the changes in the right-hand columns. You can see that the next affected activity is board approvals. Increase its duration to 10 days. Move on down to external approvals, where the next difference is visible, and change the duration to 55 days. You will note that there are no more differences in the right-hand column. This is just an example, but if this happens during import, you would need to go back into P6 and find out why these errors were caused in the first place. Then re-import your P6 schedule. It could be due to an incorrect calendar, incorrect hours per day, etc. But these errors must be corrected before re-importing. The third step is to look at the schedule check report. This report will highlight any potential problems in the schedule logic, as well as constraints, open ends, leads, and lags. But before running the schedule check report, we must first decide what criteria we want to inspect. So to do this, we select Reports, Schedule Check options, and a Schedule Check window will open. Let's just look at the Checklist tab. You will see that we can check some or all of the options before running our schedule check. We'll leave all of the options selected for now, and then click Run Check at the bottom of this window. We could have also simply clicked the Schedule Check icon in the top toolbar. The Schedule Check report will appear with a plan summary and report summary. These summaries are followed by descriptions of the selected criteria. If there are any issues that need to be resolved, these will appear after the relevant description. For example, open-ended tasks lists 2 activities that should be inspected. So if we look at the report summary, we will note that these 2 activities have been identified and can be accessed by clicking the hyperlink in the right-hand column. Upon inspection of these activities, we will note that the activities are project start and finish milestones, so we can just ignore them. Note that a schedule check tab has been added to the right in the bottom window. If you click the tab and scroll over to the right, you will see the open-ended activities that were identified. So, it is important to make sure that your schedule is healthy before importing it into Primavera Risk. You'll see that the whole import process is iterative, but once you're happy with the P6 schedule, we can now continue with the risk analysis process. In this lesson, we carried out 3 steps to make sure that our imported schedule was healthy. In the next lesson, we will test the risk model.